Hello and welcome to Boss Talks episode 12. We have a great guest today, William Butler. I was introduced to him by Leah Orsbin, actually a former guest of ours that was great. And it is my pleasure to bring him to the show. He's been in this industry since 2009. He previously was in student housing directly, leasing and all the things, community management, all that kind of stuff, but has since jumped into his own endeavor and running a business. But I'll let him tell us a little bit more about that. So, welcome to the show, William.
Evan,
All
thank you,
right.
thank you, thank you for having me, man. Completely humbled and honored to be able to share this stage virtually with you.
Yes,
I've
absolutely.
I've watched the show from the side, just kind of watching some of the other people that I dabble in the space with come in, and I'm excited to be here and be able to talk shop with you.
It's been fun to get to know you a little bit. And it was fun to see that you actually have roots in the Washington and Seattle area. So I'd love to know, like, where'd you grow up? Because that's where we're based in. Actually, Everett is our headquarters, but
Okay.
I'm in south of Seattle. So to know where you grew up a little bit, and then I know you went to Washington State and actually Central, I believe. So kind of your trajectory there, because I know that all plays a part in how you got into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You opened up Pandora's box because I've been a little bit of everywhere. I'm originally from Seattle. You've identified it, right? So, from Seattle, born and raised, the exact location is High Point, like West Seattle. That's where I grew up. That's where I'm from, and dabbled in that area. And then, by the luck of a draw, I was fortunate enough to get the Bill and Melinda Gates Scholarship, which said, hey, I have
Nice.
to stay here in Washington in order to honor the scholarship, but I didn't necessarily want to go to University of Washington. I wanted to go a little bit further from home, which led me to go to Eastern Washington University for the first 2 years of my undergrad, which is kind of where my property management career started. Back 2008 is when I went to Eastern, but I found student housing property management in 2009. And that's when it all started operating in the property management space. Then ended up taking my talents out to Washington State University. That's where I ended up graduating. But then what they don't tell you is once you graduate, jobs don't just start rolling in.
No,
You know,
that
yeah,
was my experience too, man.
maybe a lot of debt, but not necessarily the jobs. But essentially, luck of a draw, I was able to go ahead and land a position back at the old property that I started off at as a leasing manager back in 2009, and I just continued along that route. I got really good at this thing called leasing and touched just about every position on the leasing side of things on the way up. First starting off with Campus Crest Communities, then growing up with Asset until I ended up, coming to the close of my career as the training developer with Asset, building out the training program. And then at that point, it was like, hey, you know what? I want to do something a little bit more, right? I want to leave a legacy on the industry, right? And I think we can dive a little bit deeper into that. But that's where all the traveling around came from. Started in Seattle, but in process of going through all the stages of leasing, I went into the leasing like a lease up specialist role, which demanded that I move to Michigan for a little while. And then from I'm in West Michigan, kind of Grand Rapids area. Spent a little bit of time there, then went to California. California brought me down to Houston, and here we are now.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a little bit of
I
everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. And that's good because that gives you a good, well-rounded perspective of how things go in different parts of the country. Anything notable that you found out about different parts of the country and how leasing goes? Or is it just blocking and tackling, as you really point out in a lot of your methods, I think?
In the way of leasing, I mean, there's going to be different nuances to just about every single market you go to, right? I can't say that every market is completely the same. But I will tell you this with Empower PMC and a lot of the success that we do find, a lot of it is exactly kind of what you're discussing, right? I remember vividly my kid nephew, he plays football. And one of the things that one of his coaches had said stuck with me, very profound to me. He was saying it to the kid because my kid nephew, by and large, right, he's like my spirit kid. If and when I do have a child, right, I want him to look, act, be like that guy, right? He's amazing, but he's fancy. He likes all the flashy things. And there was one point where one of his coaches had addressed him and was like, hey, Antoine, don't be cute. We're playing fundamental football, right? What that means is we're putting the two fat kids in the middle and you run to the right. Don't be cute. So to your point, yes, it is blocking, tackling, right? A lot of the stuff that we do, it's not that we're reinventing the wheel or we have some blue matrix pill that's going to take you out of this world of leasing. No, we do the things that work nationwide, whether it's in Seattle, here in Houston, Chicago, Pennsylvania, all across the nation. These things work if you focus on them and you do them and you execute them properly. Yeah, to answer your question, there are nuances that are market specific, but once you figure out those and are able to articulate the value proposition of your asset in particular, the recipe is the same at that point.
Sure. I know you wrote a book. Was that in the midst of you still being with Asset, or was that, there it is?
Releasing, a counterintuitive
Yes.
approach to apartment leasing.
Yes. Now, counterintuitive, is that really just like basically saying do what you need to do the basics, or is there more to that title?
Counterintuitive. So it's funny because it's a play on words, right? Because I'd say it's counterintuitive. However, it's going back down to the basics. Some of the things that somewhere in the midst of trying to find something that's completely out of the box, out of this world, right? That's going to completely shake the property management industry. We lose track of some of those practical things that we were talking about, because some of the fundamental things. And when we talk about fundamentals, when it comes down to leasing or just about anything, fundamentals aren't necessarily always fun. Right? Absolutely. But those are the things that are necessary that's going to get us to where we need to be. So when I say counterintuitive, it's circling back to the things that we need to be doing, that we know that we should be doing, but oftentimes get lost in translation as we're trying to go above and beyond and find the newest innovation that's going to shake the industry.
Is there something you've observed when it comes to when somebody hires you? There's obviously a need for, as you told me, a shot of espresso or a kind of a boost to the leasing. They're either problem properties that are just 60% leased and these are old properties or whatever that need a boost of adrenaline, and then that's what you provide to a degree. But beyond that, obviously if you leave, it could go back in the wrong direction. You've really implemented, yes, we help you do that, but let's also make sure you do these well moving forward. So what is it that you have seen? Is there a lack of kind of teaching those basics?
I would say that there's a couple things. What I've noticed is the first step. So typically when coming on and taking on these assignments, one of the hardest things to come around, and kind of case in point, we just took on a deal, which I'll circle back to, that was operating at around 50%. They're operating at 50%. And then there was a property management company that had reached out to me and was like, hey, what does it look like to bring you guys in? And we're like, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and analyze the property. I get in, I have an interview, a conversation, much like we're having right now. And then on the other side of the conversation, they were like, okay, no, we're good. We got it all under control, right? After I constantly reach out to this potential client, right? They're like, hey, you know what? We got it under control. We just got to the market really late. We're just going to have to count this as an L. I get off the phone with them. I'm like, okay, they're settling for the L, right? Like they just want to call it an L. That's fine with me. Sure enough, the owner of that property calls me back like, hey, William, we need you guys to come in, right? We need you guys to come in and get this done. We do not have it under control. We need to get this thing fixed ASAP. And this is the middle of June, trying to hit a goal by the end of July, right? I mean, at that point, we're waiting very late to call us in, right? We are by and large the panic button. We're at 50% in the middle of June in a student housing deal. This is a big problem, right? So I guess to answer your question is, the first thing that we need to do is disown our ego for a moment, right? Or displace that ego, because we all have ego, right? We all have it. It's all living, it's breathing. The question is, where is it located in the middle of making these decisions? Clearly, in that situation, are we acting out of ego, or are we going to allow our pride to be the reason why this property fails? Or is it okay to say, hey, we need a little help here? It's like what Ronald Reagan says. It's amazing the amount of things that can get accomplished the moment that you stop caring about who takes the credit. I'm not here to show you up. I'm not here to tell you that I'm better than you. There's just a failing asset and you don't have the bandwidth right now to get it done. Allow us to come in and help you out, and then the process be able to train your team. So first and foremost, it's the ego of just recognizing and saying, hey, we do need a little help, and we're not leasing where we need to be, and really just owning that, taking accountability to that fault and allowing somebody else to come in and help out. And then two, to your point, is investment. Typically will come down, and we'll go to the property and we'll see clients like throwing out the kitchen sink. Here goes $1,000 gift card. Here goes $2,000 gift card. Here goes all of these different concessions and all these different incentives to try to buy leases. But the one thing that we didn't take enough time to really invest in is the training of our staff, the people on the ground, the people that are actually out there having these conversations, trying to convert a walk-in into a lease, right? Trying to convert a phone call into a tour, right? We're not pouring into training them on some of the basic stuff that anybody who coming up in the industry, we know we should be doing,
Right.
but we're not spending the time to really pour into the people who are doing it.
Yeah. What's the biggest area of opportunity or kind of a failure when it that you observe in most properties, like that you need to help fix? What's the main couple things that you see?
The mindset, the mindset more than anything. Another, I guess, another situation that just took place, honestly, yesterday, Evan. I had a conversation with a potential client, and I reached out to him and talking to him about the asset in question. Brand new development, absolutely stunning. Been operating for about 10 months now, but only at 60% occupancy, right? Or 67% pre-leased, right? Is where they're sitting. And, I'm reaching out to them. I'm like, hey, are you guys comfortable with these leasing numbers? Or are you trying to solve this leasing problem? Like, what's going on there? And he's like, oh, you show me somewhere else in the market where somebody else is getting X amount of leases a week, right? X amount of leases over this time. I'm like, you guys have over 250 pieces of traffic coming in a month, and we've only signed just north of 20 leases, right? Like we're pushing almost a 10% closing ratio at that point, right? Like I'm not talking about anybody else at this point. I'm talking about what we're doing, executing at your property, one phone call, one tour. Now, it's one thing to look at the market and say, this is what the market is doing. I'm okay with my 20 leases. But it's another thing to bleed out of that collective psychology and say, hey, this is what my team can be doing. This is how we can be executing. This is how we can focus on our closing ratio and thus multiply our leasing velocity. But too often we're focused on what the other person is doing and what the market is doing to define our success or our failure, when really we need to look internally, look at our people and see how we're executing. That's one of the bigger issues that I find is we're too living in this collective psychology of what the market is doing and how the market is performing, that it never allows us to bleed out of it. Because if you live your life solely predicated upon empirical data, you'll only ever get what has already been gotten, right? You'll never truly achieve anything different if your only level of success is predicated upon what the next person did.
Right. No, that's a good thought, because I think that's a lot of us, leasing or otherwise. I think we always look at, okay, what's the average? Perfect. I'm the average.
Absolutely.
I'm doing enough.
Absolutely. Somebody has to be number one. How do I get better?
Yeah. So what's your kind of claim to fame when you come in, say they're at the 10 or the 20% leasing at a property? What do you typically see when it comes to you guys coming in? How many in a month can you, out of that 200 leads, like how do you get those to become renters?
Yeah, absolutely. So out of those 200 leads, based on the data, our team across the board gets to boast to be able to, okay, let's say this. So out of 200 leads, our conversion ratio, we would say, is about 50%. What does conversion ratio mean? That means somebody calls in or somebody inquires about our apartment. If you are a lead in our ecosystem, we're able to convert, meaning turn you into a walk-in at a 50% conversion ratio. So one out of every two people, if you inquired about our community, you're going to come in and you're going to come take a look at it. Now, of that 100 people that does come in, we've been successful pretty much across any asset type that we touch. We've been successful enough to be able to close about 75% of those.
Oh, wow.
Right? Absolutely. Right. So it's huge. If you come in and you see the property, right? Statistically, people don't look at more than 3 or 4 properties, right, that they're interested in, right? They've already prejudged you. They say that 90% of all buyers' decisions are made on the internet before they actually make any further take any further action, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
looking at something, I want to look at Google. I'm going to look at Google. I'm going to look at the little stars on the side and see the rating. And then from there, I'm going to do my own little research. And then after that, once I've already decided that I liked it, then I'm going to give you a call and try to set up a tour or ask a few more questions, right? So if they're already coming in to take a tour, or if they're calling you, that means they already like you. Now it's our job to just be able to execute it. How are we converting that incoming call? And then once that incoming call turns into a tour, it's no longer about my property, it's about you. So the second half of your question is, how do we turn that prospect into a renter? I stop talking about the property, I start talking about you, Evan. What is it that is motivating you to make this buyer's decision? What is it that you're looking for in your next apartment? What do you like to do for fun? What's most important to you? Because then once I have that information, you just gave me the study guide to my big exam. Now I'm going to use that and just walk you through this apartment and be able to paint the picture of what your lifestyle is going to be like living here. And you're like, oh my God, I found the perfect apartment. How did I stumble across this? It's because we were able to create it, right? Based on the information you told me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, what do you like to do for fun? I like to play basketball. I like to work out. Oh, we're walking by the fitness center. Oh, what do you know? Oh, look, there's a basketball court.
Evan, I told you it's not rocket science, man. And it's funny because they say if I think it's, I forgot the saying, right? But they said if you want to hide your deepest secrets, put it in the pages of a book. I literally wrote this stuff in a book, and people choose not to read it, right?
Sure.
It's not hard. It's just the execution of it. Really
Sure.
going out there and actually making it happen.
And you said 2009 is when you started, right?
2009. Yep. That's when it all
I mean,
began.
that's not very long ago.
Not at all.
And when did you write your book?
2 days from now will be the 3-year anniversary.
Okay. So you weren't even in the industry very long. You're still a baby. We'll just call it that. Because I mean, if you're 10 years, that's pretty short, right? But you figured out a formula. Again, the basics, but it is the basics that win. So you can't do anything until you actually, and I guess it's because you applied that, did it, saw results, and you're like, I see that not everybody's doing this.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, so Kobe Bryant, we all know who Kobe, Evan, do you know who Kobe Bryant is?
Yeah, I know who Kobe Bryant is.
The guy's amazing, right? So, I mean, we could take it back to, I think his name was Allen. His last name is escaping me right now, but an athletic coach, right? And he had the privilege of going to one of these combines where Kobe Bryant was actually performing at like a Nike conference, right? I mean, he wasn't performing, but he was there doing this thing. And Allen had the opportunity to go and watch Kobe Bryant at one of his practices. So Kobe was like, yeah, meet me at 3:00. I'll be in the gym. Or he said 4:00, meet me in the gym. I'll be doing my thing and warming up. You can watch me do my practice. He was like, okay, 4:00 p.m. No, 4 a.m. Right. So the guy gets up. He's like, okay, I want to impress Kobe. I want to get there at 3:30. Kobe's already in the gym warming up. You hear his sneakers squeaking across the floor. He's doing his thing. He's already warming up. And then this practice is all of going on 2 hours long. And this Allen guy, he's sitting there, he's watching Kobe, and he's just like, why is this guy doing dribbling drills and drop step drills? And you're the greatest in the world, right? Like you're arguably one of the greatest, right? Why are you doing dribbling drills? So after the warm up and after the practice was over, he walked up to Kobe and he asked that question. You're amongst one of the greatest. Why is this the practice that you're doing and not something else? I was hoping to see something sexy. And Kobe's response is what was so profound. He said, why do you think that I am one of the greatest? He said, because I never get bored of the basics. The reason why we are so great and we get the boast to be the #1 nationwide leasing firm in industry is because we don't get bored of the basics. We're going to go in there and we're going to do it. And we're going to do what works over and over again. Again, just blocking, tackling. I hate to say it, but I have to speak it from the mountaintop. It's the things that work. I don't know if there's a need to fix what's not broken.
Sure.
When we go into these properties, a lot of the things that we're looking at in marketing or leasing is pretty simple. Marketing leads to traffic, leads to leases. So the first thing I'm going to look at is what are we doing for marketing? Is it solely social media? Social media is great. Fantastic, right? Best ability is availability, right? So being present and allowing your next client to find you, that's awesome. But what else? right? What more are we doing? And then once we do generate the traffic, what are we doing to convert it? So there's a little bit of a recipe that we follow, but for the most part, it's the basics.
Yeah.
And
What are
then
some of the other ways that you drive traffic?
depends on the asset class that we're talking about, right? Or that what vertical we're dabbling in. Say, for example, student housing. I'm really passionate about the idea that in student housing, this is the only realm of sales where you have all of your target audience all in one place, all at one time, 7 days out of the week, every week out of the year, besides holidays and breaks, right?
And the same age.
And the same age, and the same age, right? What is it, Matt McConaughey? They say, look, we get older, they stay the same age or something like that. All right, it's terrible. Yeah, that's essentially what it is, right? Because you have all of these students, 20,000 students, all tethered to one university, Monday through Friday, right? And Saturday and Sunday if they're freshmen living on 7 days a week, every week out of the year, besides holidays and breaks. So literally, if you just get up, walk on campus, shake a few hands, kiss a few babies, you can literally bring that person back to the office and turn that into a lease today. It's just that simple. So if you just get up there and find unique ways to grab your people's attention, right? By definition, we just define all things marketing, right? Grabbing your client's attention or potential client's attention. Find a way to attract them to come back to your office. Everything else handles itself, right? If we're talking about multifamily deals, why not tap into some preferred employer programs that we could potentially work out? What businesses are around that have transient employees that are coming in, maybe on a contractual job, and just need a place for that window. Maybe we're looking for a 6 month, 12-month deal. Now you're putting yourself in a position where you can help these guys out, or maybe they're relocating, right? Local hospitals, different. We were able to sign a bunch of leases from a casino a couple months ago at a property we were working at. There's different ways to go about doing it. You just have to be creative and willing to get out into the market and make it happen.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln, good things come to those who wait, but only the things left from those who hustle. We, by and large, at Empower, we sell hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do the work. And like you said, don't get bored of the basics. How can you get bored of the basics if it shows results at the end of the day? Because leasing at a high level means more money in the pocket of the person doing the leasing, right? Because they get bonuses or
100%.
whatever, however they're structured. So how are you going to get mad at that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you obviously are only one person. I know that there's a team behind you at Empower, and you
Absolutely.
guys float all over the country to inject your adrenaline into these properties. So how many people you got on your team now?
It depends on the season, right? Now we choose to keep our team a little bit more precise simply because
Uh-huh.
we want to preserve the quality of the work, right? Any given time we're operating with around 15 of us as far as like the
Okay.
specialists and then my partner and I. And it's funny because I come as one, but I show as the full power of my team, right? Like I just get to be the face. These guys are the ones that do all the fantastic work, right? You'll see them all over TikToks. You'll see them actually going in and actually doing the work at these properties, and it's fulfilling. But the joy is we get a chance to multiply our team every property that we get to go to, right? Because the model is we'll send a leasing specialist to the property, right? Typically, it's one specialist. Sometimes it can be more depending on the size of the property, but we'll send one specialist down there. And the idea is for us to take over leasing. But people typically get a little nervous there. Like, oh, are you going to take it over? No, we just want to put our hands on it so we can figure out what is working versus what's not working. And the moment that we identify what's not working, we can unlearn that and then teach everybody what is working so then we can start to multiply the efforts on the ground. So it's not
Right.
just one person that comes in and is signing just hundreds of leases every property to empower, which means to extract the ability and confidence in each person that we get a chance to touch and be able to train them to do the things that we get to do. So for property management companies, it becomes free training for them.
Yeah.
But for us, we get to grow our team a little bit bigger because now they're like, wow, I really appreciate the training and the time that you guys put into investing in me. And then now they're out there doing it the Empower way of leasing. And everybody truly just believes in the craft and the stuff that we're doing for the industry. It's an amazing feeling being able to pour into, again, the people that are on the ground that's making it happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. It's obviously working, And if you are in the industry and you need an injection of some adrenaline, check out his book, Releasing, and I'm sure it'll be helpful. Otherwise, I have a couple questions for you at the end here. Being that our name is Community Boss, I like to ask, how is it that you personally, whether it's in your profession or in your personal life, to build community?
Selfishly, I like to
Yeah,
surround
man.
myself. Yeah. Selfishly, I like to surround myself by amazing people. Again, Empower PMC as a company, as it is nothing more than a melting pot of just amazing people, all great at what they do. And it's funny because like I've gone through a series many days in my life, like trying to almost kind of imposter syndrome, trying to be like somebody else until I realized that if there are two of us in the same space doing the same thing, one of us is unnecessary. I like surrounding myself around people that are going to allow me to grow, allow
Sure.
me to stretch myself. And even in interviews, if I'm sitting down in an interview trying to source out a potential candidate to come on the team, right? What do I look for? Is I look for somebody to teach me something, right? Be able to educate me on something. Because that means if you're able to teach me, then I'm not constantly pulling you up and hoping for you to only meet me here, right? I want to be able, as much as I am going to pour into you and help grow, I like help grow you. I also want you to be able to come in and add some value to the team and everything and our mission, right? Constantly trying to put myself in new spaces, constantly going to conferences to increase that network and talking to people like you, Evan, the Mr. Community Boss himself, right? Mr. Boss Talk. I love meeting people, authorities in their field, and really being able to pick their brain. I guess that's how I grow community.
Yeah, and that's a reason for this show. There's so many people with so much wisdom that have done things that I haven't done. And
Yeah.
I could try to do everything, which isn't going to happen, or I could learn from other people. So I really
Absolutely.
appreciate you being here, William. Next question is, if you had somebody over to your home for dinner, what would you cook them?
Oh, we depends on the setting, right? If you're coming over and we're having like a barbecue setting, I have what's called and has been coined trash bag chicken.
Okay.
TVC. The origin of it started off in, I think, I guess just bleeding outside of college, right? Really need to put together some chicken for a barbecue. The only kind of place I had to put it in was like an unscented bag, right? Throw it in there,
Okay.
season it all up. That's where the marinade's set. But whenever I throw it on the grill, people absolutely love it, right? So it's become a signature, and people call it Willie's Trash Bag Chicken. There's that. But if we're actually sitting in, dining, having a good meal, I'm probably going to make you a salmon dish.
That's roots in Seattle right there.
There you go. Yeah. Look, hardly home, but always repping.
That's right. But I want some trash bag chicken. So if I'm ever in, it's Houston, right, where you're located?
Houston.
All right,
Houston.
man.
Yes,
If I'm
indeed.
coming down there, you're making me some trash bag chicken.
Say
So,
less. Give me a time and a place. We can make it happen.
all right. So, and final question. And then there's a couple people that had some good questions. Being that you are from Seattle, we are also. If you had a preferred coffee drink, what would it be?
Mine's not the most fancy drink.
That's all right.
Nowadays, look, because my recipe requires that I get up around like 4 to 4:30 in the morning and go until I fall asleep. So when I wake up, I just like a double, like a doppio. That's what Starbucks calls it. Just a double espresso shot. Let's do it. Let's get it done really quickly and go.
Not
Um,
even an Americano, just straight up, huh?
just straight up espresso.
You drink what you are. So you're the shot of espresso, so you drink that too. So there you go.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
All right. So there is a couple good questions. So the first one is from Leah Love Orsman. What markets are you in right now?
I think it'd be easier to identify which ones we're not in. No, we're currently in San Marcos. We're also in the Austin area. We're also in out here in Houston. We just left Reno, Nevada. We're also in Huntsville, Texas. We're pretty much like our footprint is national, right? There's a property that's struggling and needs a little bit of help. There's no task too small, right? Or no challenge too big. We'll go out there and we'll get it done.
Nice. And then the next question from Eric Orsman. Do you consult for conventional properties also, or just student?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we don't discriminate on the asset class. We definitely have our favorites, right? But multifamily, right? Conventional deals, student housing, that's disproportionately where we land. We've dabbled in senior, yeah. So we pretty much touch, wherever there's a vertical that needs a head in a bed, we go ahead and we take care of it.
Nice. And then final question from Kaylee Poor. I don't know if you know who she is. I'm not certain
Yeah,
I know. All right.
I
Uh,
do.
which fundamental principle of leasing do you believe is the most underrated, and how do you refresh that principle to get results?
The principle, fundamental principle, I would say, hopefully I understand the question correctly, right? But if there was a tip or like a nugget that I would leave that's often overlooked, but I would argue and say is the most important, it's building rapport with your potential client, right? Again, let this experience be about them, less about what you want to tell them. Too often as leasing professionals, we get into a space where we want to just run our mouth, right? Talk about what it is that we want to tell you and how we're so excited about X, Y, and Z. All too often, kind of losing sight of what it is that they're actually interested in and what they're looking for in the first place. I would say that's the one that's often overlooked the most is really taking the time to sit down and build rapport. I remember I was more recently out in South Carolina and I was working with a team. They're a really strong team, but the first thing that I noticed was very little rapport was being built, very little value of the property was being sold, right? It was just, okay, we have granite countertops and designer furniture. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but what do I want? Oh, people, they don't want to spend that much time coming in here and spending all this time hearing about the property. They just want the rates. Then why did they come? Like, why do you think they came here? They could have called and got the numbers over the phone. They wanted to envision their experience here. You were cutting them short, assuming that they only wanted to be here for 10 minutes. Give them the
Right.
full experience. Let them see what it's going to be like to live here, but not what you think it's going to be like to live here. Figure out
Right.
what they're interested in and paint that picture. Build a rapport.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. That works in a lot of areas too.
Absolutely.
I love to get to know somebody, and just like we had a pre-call just so I could get to know you a little bit and have a little bit more familiarity. So
That was a good time too, Evan.
yeah. Yeah. So it and my point between thanks for the question, Kaylee. My point of even doing boss talks is to be able to, like I say, meet people, learn from others, but also just build the ability to network with more people across the whole country and to learn from people and hopefully get new friends, build community as well. It's a big part of my history is getting to know people, bringing people together and building community. So I wanted to figure
Absolutely.
out a way to do that, and this is how I'm doing it. I appreciate you being here, William, and being my guest, episode 12 of Boss Talks.
Episode 12.
And we will keep this going next week. So check us out here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and also in the Facebook group, the official Apartment Management and Maintenance Support Group. Check them out as well. Great place to get advice and see funny memes and stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
There we go.
But yeah, check us out. And if you want to be a guest on the show, hit me up on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I'd love to have you share with everyone why you're the boss.